The reason the world's biggest problems look impossible isn't that they lack solutions, it's that we're using flawed mental recipes. It's time to stop relying on those outdated rules. We're going to show you the single most powerful mental framework for breaking down literally anything and building revolutionary results.
Okay, let's really get into this, because this one idea, it's everything. We all walk around using these mental models, right? These inherited ways of thinking that are kind of like recipes for solving problems. But what happens when those recipes were written for, I don't know, a campfire, and you're trying to cook in a high-tech modern kitchen? You get garbage results. You get frustrated. You're following a proven process, but for a world that just doesn't exist anymore. That's the trap. First principles thinking is how you bypass all of that. It's not about finding a better recipe. It's about understanding the fundamental physics of the ingredients so you can invent something brand new from scratch.
And that right there leads us to this big paradox of innovation. To create something truly new, you can't just slap a new coat of paint on what's already there. You have to be willing to do some serious intellectual demolition. I mean, you have to take the entire building of your understanding, look at every single brick, and be willing to smash it to pieces. It's only by breaking a problem down to its absolute rock-solid truths, the stuff you know is real, like the laws of physics, that you can then rebuild something that isn't just a small tweak, but a total game changer. It feels kind of destructive, yeah? But that teardown is the absolute first step to building something that lasts.
So you might be wondering, if this method is so powerful, why don't we all just do it naturally? Why are we so often stuck making tiny improvements instead of giant leaps? Well, the answer is hardwired into our brains. We are biologically programmed to take mental shortcuts, and that programming leads us right into what's called the trap of analogy. Let's look at the science of why we get stuck. The real enemy we're up against here is something called intellectual inertia. You can think of it like Newton's first law for your brain. A thought pattern in motion stays in motion. It's our brain's incredibly powerful, energy-saving habit of just relying on what's familiar, the old assumptions, the way things have always been done. Now look, that was a great survival tool out on the savannah, but in our complex modern world, that efficiency comes with a huge price. It actively blocks new, original thought. Intellectual inertia is like gravity, constantly pulling our ideas down to Earth. First principles thinking is the rocket engine you need to break orbit. So this really breaks down into two totally different ways of thinking. Over on the left, that's our default mode, reasoning by analogy. It's quick, it's low effort, your brain sees a problem and immediately goes, what does this remind me of? You just copy, paste, and tweak what's been done before. This is exactly how you end up with a slightly faster horse instead of a car. It's all about small, predictable, incremental results. But over on the right, you have the hard path, the high effort path, first principles thinking. It doesn't ask what something looks like, it asks what it fundamentally is. It tears ideas down to their basic truths and rebuilds from there. The result isn't just a small step forward, it's a revolution.
And here's the real consequence of living in that first column. You operate under an invisible barrier. We call it the solution ceiling. It's the absolute upper limit of what's possible inside a certain set of assumptions. As long as you just accept the rules of the game, that batteries have to cost a certain amount, or that rockets can only be used once, you can only get better within those rules. You can never, ever break through to a new reality. I mean, look at Elon Musk and SpaceX. He didn't just accept that rockets were expensive, he asked, what are they actually made of? And he found out that the raw materials were only about 2% of the total price. That other 98%, that was the solution ceiling, built out of decades of unchecked assumptions. Our goal here is to give you the sledgehammer to smash it.
So, how do we actually do it? How do we shatter that ceiling? Well, not by just hoping for a brilliant idea. We use a system. This isn't about waiting for a lightning bolt of genius. It's about running a rigorous, repeatable process, the core engine of first principles thinking.
The whole framework is a really clean 3-step process. First up, step 1, identify and state your current assumptions. You have to get every rule, every belief, every constraint out of your head and down on paper. This basically shows you the bars of your own mental prison so you can see them clearly. Then comes the most critical part. Step 2, break it all down to fundamental truths. You take every single one of those assumptions and you grill it, you interrogate it, until the only things left are verifiably, undeniably true. And then finally, once you have your pile of these elemental truths, you start step 3, synthesize and rebuild. You take only those truths and you build a new solution from the ground up, totally ignoring the old broken rulebook.
This right here, This is the whole game. This question is the drill bit, the wrecking ball, the single most powerful tool in this entire process. So let's say you have an assumption like, building this product is going to be way too expensive. Okay, let's ask the question. What is undeniably true? Well, it requires certain raw materials. The market price for steel or lithium, that's a verifiable truth. It requires people to assemble it. Now, the cost of that labor can change. It's not a fixed law of the universe. By asking this question over and over, you start to separate the actual physics of the problem from all the conventional wisdom that's been piled on top of it. And that's where you find the real opportunities. Okay, so now we know what the framework is, but it's just as important to understand why it is so incredibly effective. This isn't just some clever thought experiment. This is a process that actually rewires your brain, forcing it to operate at its highest level. Let's take a look at the neuroscience behind the breakthrough. This framework forces you into what's called deep work, that state of intense, focused, distraction-free concentration. And when you engage in that kind of tough mental deconstruction, you're not just thinking, you're kicking off a biological upgrade. You're forcing specific pathways in your brain to fire over and over, which stimulates the growth of something called myelin. Think of myelin as the insulation around your neural wiring. It's like upgrading your brain's old dial-up internet to brand new fiber optics. More myelin means a faster, clearer, more efficient signal. You're literally building a faster brain. And this really shows the battle that's going on inside your mind. Like we said, your brain's default setting is that low-effort, associative thinking. The first principles framework is like a manual override. It forces the CEO of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, to step in and take control. It has to ditch the easy shortcuts and do the hard work of abstract analysis. And doing this consistently, it's like taking your prefrontal cortex to the gym. You're strengthening your cognitive control, making you way more resistant to that lazy intellectual inertia. And finally, there's this huge psychological win. You know that feeling of staring at a massive, seemingly impossible problem and just freezing? You don't even know where to start? We call that initiation anxiety. The beauty of this framework is that it gives you a clear roadmap. It gives you a step one, identify your assumptions. You don't have to stare at the whole mountain anymore, you just have to focus on taking that first step. This turns a terrifying challenge into a series of small, manageable tasks, giving you the confidence you need to actually get started. All right, theory is great, but results come from doing the work. So let's make this super practical. How can you apply this framework, like today, to a real problem you're dealing with? Here are the 3 non-negotiable steps to get you started.
This is your immediate game plan, and it directly mirrors the theory we just talked about. Step 1, the assumption dump, is all about getting the problem out of your head where you can see it clearly. Step 2, the deconstruction drill, is where you take your biggest limiting beliefs and hit them with that critical question. And step 3, the structural rebuild, is where you map out the new path, and this is key, commit to taking the first step. This isn't just a thinking exercise. It's about turning insights into immediate, scheduled action.
Let's really focus on step 1 for a second, because this is where most people trip up. The biggest mistake you can make is trying to do this all in your head. You can't. Your brain is designed to protect its own beliefs. You have to grab a piece of paper or open a new document and just write down every single rule, belief, and constraint you have about your problem. It has to be done this way, this part is always the most expensive, we'll never have enough time for that. Get it all out there. Only when you can see your assumptions laid out in front of you can you start to pick them apart objectively. And now for the final move that makes all of this real. Look, an idea without execution is just a daydream. After you've torn down your old assumptions and designed a new solution from solid truths, you have to make it happen. The single most effective way to do that is to open your calendar right then and there and block out time for the very first, smallest physical action you can take. Schedule an appointment with your future self. That simple act turns an abstract idea into a real commitment, and it's how you overcome the inertia that keeps so many great ideas stuck on the whiteboard forever. So, as we wrap this up, if there's only one thing you take away from our time together, please let it be this. The whole point of first principles thinking is a massive shift in how you see the world and where your real limits actually come from. The world is a complex place, no doubt. Problems are hard, but that ceiling on your potential, that solution ceiling we talked about, it's not actually out there in the world. It's an internal thing. It's an invisible cage built from all the assumptions you've accepted without ever questioning them. And the second you realize that those assumptions aren't laws of nature, they're just ideas, that's the moment you get the power to change everything. You built the cage and you can tear it down. And that leads me to a direct challenge for you. This can't just be an interesting idea. It has to become a practice. So let's make it real. right now. Think of one big problem or a major goal in your life. What is the single biggest, most foundational assumption you have about it? Just one. And commit right now to putting that one assumption through the deconstruction drill tomorrow. Don't wait. Just start there. So let's pull this all together. At the end of the day, first principles thinking is the ultimate answer to the problem of intellectual inertia, of getting stuck making tiny incremental changes. Why does this matter so much? Because this deconstruction and synthesis framework gives you a systematic way to build revolutionary solutions from the ground up. And remember, this isn't just a mental trick. It's a way to strengthen your brain for abstract reasoning and literally speed up how fast you build expertise. Productivity isn't about doing more, it's about mastering systems that make focus effortless.